Good afternoon. My name is Tom Murray. I'm the Chief Legal Counsel for Governmental Affairs for the North Carolina Judicial Branch, and it's an honor for us to be here today with the Chief Justice and so many honored guests. It's my pleasure to introduce a select group, because if I tried to name everybody, we'd be here for the full hour that we have the room booked. So we have former Lieutenant Governor Jim Gardner. We have Mark Johnson, Superintendent of Public Instruction, Bill Comey, Chairman of the State Board of Education. We're thankful for Representative David Lewis, Representative Dwayne Hall, and Representative former Judge Marissa Moray here, and former Representative Marilyn Avila here as well. We're glad to have the Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, Linda McGee, and Judge John Tyson from the Court of Appeals. We're glad to have Wake County Sheriff Donnie Harrison here. We have several clerks of Superior Court. We have Carol Allen White from Edgecombe County and Yancey Washington from Granville County. We're glad to have Judge Joe Buckner from District 15B, and he's the Chief District Court Judge. He's here. That's Chatham and Orange County. Glad to have Pamela Cashwell. She's the Chief Deputy Secretary of the Department of Public Safety here as well. Judge Bill Webb, who co-chaired our Criminal Adjudication and Investigation Committee for the North Carolina Commission on the Administration of Law and Justice. We're glad to have Quentin McGee. He's an Assistant District Attorney representing District Attorney John David from the 13th Prosecutorial District, which includes Brunswick, Blade, and Columbus. We're glad to have Chris Smith and Gary Salamito from the North Carolina Chamber Legal Institute here. We're glad to have Will Robinson, the Executive Director of the North Carolina Commission on the Administration of Law and Justice, and Professor Jessica Smith from the School of Government, who is the reporter for the Criminal Investigation and Adjudication Committee for NCCLJ. And we're glad to have Emily Portner, who is our Research Associate there as well. We've got John Hood, Chairman of the Board of John Locke Foundation, David Robinson, and Ernie Pearson, who are board members for Conservatives for Criminal Justice Reform. We have Mark Hicks, who's Executive Director of the Disciple Bible Outreach Ministries, which is a prison ministry outreach here. We've got Reverend Stanley with the Methodist Home for Children, Randy Bird, President of the North Carolina Police Benevolent Association, Burt Kemp and James Williams, who are both public defenders. Burt's from Pitt County, James Williams from Orange County. We're glad to have Morgan Ferries, who is co-chair of the Judiciary Committee for the Youth Legislative Assembly. So the YLA actually passed Raise the Age in their 2016 session. So we're all taking notes from Morgan on how she got this done. It wasn't unanimous, but she got it done. And so she's from Lenoir County. She drove up here from Wofford. She's a freshman at Wofford this year. So thanks for being here, Morgan. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Justice Mark Martin to bring some introductory remarks.
Thank you, Tom, and good afternoon. And we so appreciate everyone coming out this afternoon. And let me state at the outset that I'm here to talk about an important matter that affects judicial administration for the entire state of North Carolina. Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but North Carolina now stands alone. We are the only state in the country that automatically prosecutes 16-year-olds charged with minor nonviolent offenses in adult court. Now, this morning we read in an excellent article by John Hood that South Carolina passed a similar proposal, and it was unanimous. So it's time we catch up with our neighbors from south of the border. Now, what we're proposing is a very modest revision of our law. It is simply that when our teenagers are accused of nonviolent offenses, that they are not automatically tried in adult court. A recent Civitas poll that asked this question of parents across our state indicated that 70% of North Carolinians supported this proposal. Perhaps even more relevant, our own Department of Public Safety conducted surveys on this issue, which reflected that over 90% of parents already thought that 18 was the age for adult jurisdiction. Over 90% of our parents already thought this law had been changed. Now, so this needs to get done. We have up to 11 counties where the young people are already able to participate in administrative diversion programs. So in 11 counties, the young people are already automatically diverted to juvenile court and to restorative programs. So what does that say about young people in 89 other counties, given that one of the chief goals of any legal system is same facts, same outcome? But yet we have young people in up to 11 counties that have the benefit of administrative diversion programs for nonviolent offenses, but in the other 89, they do not. And I'll lead off with an illustration, because I get calls from parents who have financed a college education. We have a young person in Tennessee that steals a $12 pendant from the local mall. A North Carolina young person goes to the mall, takes the same item. Years later, they've both attended college. They're both trying to get that same job. The final step is the background investigation. In Tennessee and 48 other states, the whole matter is handled confidentially in juvenile court. In North Carolina, it's placed on the internet and so becomes a part of the background investigation. Normally, these charges are handled very quickly, so the child, the parents, they think it's behind them, only to learn 5 or 6 years later that it had a very serious effect on their ability to participate in the global marketplace. Now, I'm honored to be joined today by the former Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Jim Gardner, and please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Judge. It's an honor to be able to be here with you today. I'm not going to get into the legal aspect of it because I think we're well covered. We've got the entire court system here today, which says something. I'm here today as a grandfather of 9 grandchildren, and I spent the last 4 years of my life at the ABC Commission dealing with underage drinking. And I know that young people, mine, yours, all across this state, will make bad choices, unfortunately. And I strongly support what the Chief Justice and everybody else in this room is doing. Simply because they make a simple mistake should not be with them for the rest of their life. Now, I have a grandson right now who graduated last year from college. He has no record. He was an Eagle Scout. He still doesn't have a job. And I can just imagine what would happen if on his record was something he did at 16 or 17 years old. So, Judge, I think you're absolutely on the right track. It's long overdue, and I would say to all members of the legislature, let's get on with it, and let's get it done this year. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Governor. We have not come to you today without doing our homework. About 18 months ago, I convened a 65-member multidisciplinary task force to evaluate potential changes to our system of justice, including in our criminal courts. And now I'd like to introduce Judge Bill Webb, who chaired the criminal committee, who took a look at this issue involving our juvenile justice system. Judge Webb? Chief Justice, thank you. Let's thank Judge Webb for coming.
I'm pleased to be here and delighted to see so many other people, particularly old friends. One of the first things I ever did in North Carolina in criminal justice was with Governor Gardner, and it's good to be surrounded by him and other people. When the Chief Justice asked me to chair the criminal committee, I had one question: how committed are you to this? And he said, it is my highest priority to reform the judicial system. With that as a marching order, we met an inordinate number of times, and I'm happy to say that among the recommendations was to raise the age for juveniles to be tried as adults to 18. It resulted in what he asked for, evidence-based recommendations. The recommendations were, I think, so tightly reasoned that we were able to gain the support of the Sheriff's Association, the Police Benefits Benevolent Association, the Chiefs of Police Association, the John Locke Foundation, and the Conservatives for Criminal Justice Reform committee. It has been a bipartisan, nonpartisan effort. Probably the most egregious difference between a person in North Carolina and Tennessee has already been illustrated by the Chief Justice. But let's talk about what happens on the ground. Out of the felonies in 2014 committed by juveniles, only 3% would not have qualified for this. This is a law and order measure. Studies have shown that when juveniles go through the juvenile justice system, the parents must be involved by court mandate. It's also shown that with all of the resources that the Department of Corrections, Billy Lassiter was a member of our committee, that the chances of rehabilitation and the lack of recidivism are increased. We're able to, once again, with these proposals, come back to sight and sound segregation. That means juveniles are separated from adult offenders. This will result in tens of millions of dollars flowing back to North Carolina, which we currently don't receive. The Department of Corrections stepped up to the plate to provide things like transportation, resources, that without this, we could not have garnered the support we did. So, Mr. Chief Justice, thank you for undertaking this.
Thank you, Judge. I want to highlight the presence of Superintendent of Public Instruction Mark Johnson and also the Chair of the State Board of Education, Bill Kobe, because all of us know that we have over 1.5 million school children that attend our schools each and every day. And I think it speaks very loudly that our educators and those who work with our educational system believe this is the right step for this point in time. I'm also pleased that law enforcement, those that we trust to keep us safe, are supportive of this proposal. And at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my sheriff, the Sheriff of Wake County, Donnie Harrison.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here in full support of this initiative. But on the other hand, I have to speak to some people in jail. I'm blessed to have the jail that I have. When I say that, I wish I didn't have one, but I got 1,129 people in jail today. And I have pods for juveniles. There's a lot of jails throughout this state that does not, and they're housed with older people that put things in their head, make the light a little bit brighter if they go outside and commit crimes. But I think this initiative will stop some of that. I know it will. We need to get behind, as a lot been said here, we need to get behind this initiative. Everybody needs to talk about it. It's something that needs to be done. It's well thought out. On the other hand, those listening, we need money. It's going to take money for more juvenile counselors, especially here in Wake County. They're bogged down, but it is going to take money. ADAs, so I just want to make sure everybody understands that. But this is something that we can pull off. This is some things that we can do with the support. You look around this room at the people that's here. And like I say, Justice Martin talks about people calling him. I have parents calling me all the time about small crimes. They don't understand it till the child does try to go to a college or get a job. And they don't understand the record. So that's something that I look forward to, is that child that does that silly crime, that record to be expunged, taken off, won't ever be there if they go through the juvenile counselors, but it's going to take more. But I'm in here full support of this, and thank you for your leadership. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Sheriff. So we've heard from leaders on this issue. I so appreciate the incredible number of individuals who have come out today from all sectors of our economy, from all areas of our state. I'll leave you with this thought. I kind of touched on this theme earlier. A justice system only works when similar cases are handled in a similar fashion. We already have raised the age in many areas of our state. Now we need to make sure that promise is there for every one of our young people in North Carolina. I thank you for coming out today, and I'm going to call upon Representative Murray to conclude the press conference. Tom?
Thank you, sir. We have a broad coalition of supporters for raising the juvenile age, and I would encourage every one of you to go back to your communities and talk about how we can bring North Carolina in line with 49 other states by raising the juvenile age. And with that, I think we've got several experts up here that would be more than willing to answer any questions about the legislature or the legislative process. Gary?
It's not every day. I can't remember a time where the head of judicial branch comes to a news conference and talks about legislation that you'd like to see passed. What should legislators take away from that, or the general public, about your appearance here and the importance of it?
Well, when I talked with our legislative liaisons at the beginning of the session, and my desires to be open and transparent, I told them this was our number one priority. Because when you have young people in 89 counties being treated one way, and then folks in another 11 counties being treated another way, we could call that unequal justice. And that's one of the gravest forms of injustice for any legal system.
I think another big difference, Gary, is this report. I mean, we spent 18 months putting this thing together and flipping the North Carolina Sheriff's Association from no to yes. It's not a small effort, and thanks to Judge Webb and his leadership, this was able to be accomplished. And I would encourage every North Carolinian that is interested in the administration of justice needs to pick this up. Number one legislative initiative coming out of this report: raise the juvenile age. Laura. The House Bill 280 raises the age from 16 to 18. Yes, ma'am. I can provide you with a list. Judge Murray from Durham was one of the initial leaders on the diversion program. But I know Wake has a modified program. New Hanover County has a modified program, and there are other counties that are in the pipeline as well. With the School to Justice Partnership, that's the main one that we're pushing in the legislation. There's Section 15 of House Bill 280 is a School to Justice Partnership, which is kind of a new national model to reduce the number one referral for juvenile delinquent petitions comes out of the school system, and so that's why having Bill Kobe and Mark Johnson here, that's an indication that the education system sees this as an issue. And so we're glad to have our education leaders here as well. Yes, sir.
I think the bill has just been sitting in the committee. Have you received any assurances that it will?
We expect that the bill will be moving in the next 10 days. Rose?
Looking around, and there's a lot of, and I know this is a House of Representatives press conference, but what is the prognostication for the Senate side of the bill?
We actually have 3 raise the age bills filed in the Senate. Senator Randleman filed a bill, Senator Barringer filed a bill, and Senator Lowe filed a bill. So I would say we've got pretty good outlook there. Looking forward to working with the Senate. Since the Senate is going first this year on the budget, we're working on the policy side on the House side while the Senate continues their budget work. And so that's the strategy. Yes, ma'am.
One thing I have heard, though, is that in the Senate, there's some resistance to including felonies, lower-level felonies in this bill. Where is that going to go?
I can tell you Representative Avila filed a misdemeanor-only bill, and it passed the House when we served in the House together. And there's a lot of folks that did a lot of high fives when we passed a misdemeanor-only bill. I think we can push the policy in the right direction without sacrificing public safety. And so I think those mid-level felonies need to be looked at. Loretta?
You talked about the money that's being used. Is there a fiscal note of how much money you need up front in order to do this?
We expected to have a fiscal note, and so we're actually working with the bill sponsor on the House side, Chuck McGrady, who's a big chair in House Appropriations. We're working with him on the fiscal impact and making sure that we fully understand just exactly what it's going to cost. We know that we're going to need to build a new youth detention center, and so we're just talking about how many beds do we need to build, and then how many positions need to be hired to handle the new case volume. And so we're working on that with the bill sponsor and fiscal research. Bo?
Well, if we had compelling reasons that supported how we currently handle it, I wouldn't mind standing alone on any issue, but regrettably, we've simply become an outlier because all of the data, all of the professionals we trust each and every day to keep us safe, they are uniform in their recommendation that we need to take this step. And I would note that the only other state that had trailed in this area, New York State, about 2 weeks ago, they changed the law.
And just 2 weeks, just last week, Texas went from 17 to 18. Texas. Last question.
Legislators haven't really been known for listening to some of the experts this session. What makes this issue any different than some of the other court issues that have been going on?
I think the biggest X factor is this report right here. And this was a bipartisan, multidisciplinary approach. And we have enough evidence that even this legislature is going to listen to this time, because another good indication that I see is when the initial bill filing press conference happened about a month ago. It was about a month and a half ago. We had Senator Randleman, JPS chair. Senator Barringer was present, and so that was one of the first times that I can remember that we actually had senators show up to a press conference about raise the age. That tells me that there's movement in both chambers in this issue. So thank you for being here today. We'll be glad to stick around. We've got folks with criminal defense experience from the North Carolina Bar Association. Kearns Davis is here. Franklin Freeman, a former AOC director. Judge Marion Warren, who's the current director of AOC, is here. So we've got plenty of experts if you want to get down into the nitty-gritty of how the juvenile justice system helps kids prevent a life of crime. We'll be glad to stick around. So thanks for being here today.
Good job.